A desert where it almost never rains, and carved across that parched ground on a scale so monstrous no human eye standing on the earth could ever take it in. A spider more than 300 meters long, a hummingbird, a monkey with its tail curled into a perfect spiral. Figures so enormous they only make sense when seen from the sky, but the people who traced them could not fly. So why draw something you could never see whole? Who were these figures for? And wait, because the most unsettling part isn't their size. It's that they've been there for almost 2,000 years, intact, as if someone wanted them to last forever. We're in southern Peru on the arid plains near the city of Nazca, about 400 kilometers south of Lima. Most of these lines are believed to have been created by the Nazca culture around 2,000 years ago, though some of the oldest drawings, with more human-like figures, belong to the earlier Paracas culture. For centuries, no one walking across that desert could tell what they were treading on. The figures are simply too large. Only when humankind learned to fly did the mystery come to light. They were officially discovered in 1927 by Toribio Mejia Gespe, a Peruvian archaeologist who found them while walking those hills on foot. But it was the air that changed everything. The American historian Paul Kosok observed the lines from a plane in 1941 and proposed that they had been traced for astronomical purposes. And this is where it gets truly strange. Because the more they were studied, the less a simple explanation fit. First, the method. Because before we ask why, we have to understand how. And how they did it is almost more baffling than the why. The lines weren't painted. They were created by removing material. The desert surface is covered in reddish-brown pebbles, oxidized by the sun. The ancient Nazca carefully lifted away those dark stones from the top. When that gravel is removed, the pale clay-colored ground exposed underneath contrasts sharply in color and tone with the surface around it, producing visible lines. A trick of contrast. Dark stone away, light earth beneath, nothing more. Most of the lines form on the ground as a shallow trench, between 10 and 15 centimeters deep. 10 centimeters, that's all that stands between these figures and vanishing, and yet they're still here. Why? Because of the driest place on the planet. Thanks to its isolation and the dry, windless, stable climate of the plateau, the lines have been preserved almost entirely by nature. With the moisture of the morning fog, the lime-rich subsoil hardens into a protective crust that shields the lines from the wind and prevents erosion. The desert that barely breathes, no rain, no wind to erase. A sealed chamber in the open air. That's why what they drew back then, we can still see today. All right, we know how they were made and why they survive, but we still lack the essential thing. What for? And here the theories begin to clash. The first great answer came from a woman who devoted her entire life to this desert. Maria Rigor, a German translator who spent years studying the site and fighting for its preservation, concluded it was an enormous astronomical calendar and that some of the animal drawings were inspired by clusters of stars in the night sky. Because Maria Reich investigated the lines for more than 40 years, she became known as the Lady of the Lines. Her idea was seductive. She noticed that the stone lines pointed to a spot on the horizon where the sun rose and set during the winter and summer solstices, the moments when the seasons change. A farming people in a desert needed to know when the water would come. What if this was their giant clock in the sky? It fit so well until someone decided to test it rigorously. And that's when the theory began to crack. The first apparently systematic astronomical attempt was carried out by Gerald Hawkins in 1969. He studied only a few lines within a tiny area compared to the whole plain, and concluded that the Nazca lines, taken as a whole, cannot be explained as astronomical, nor are they a calendar. And it wasn't the only setback. Over time, specialists concluded the lines were not primarily astronomical, even though the work of Reicher and Kosok had drawn academic attention to this great resource, so the sky calendar was faltering. But if it wasn't for watching the stars, what was left? This is where the mystery turns toward the ground, toward something far more desperate. Water. Remember the detail from the beginning. Because of the incredible aridity of the Nazca Desert, which receives barely 20 minutes of rain in an entire year, The most likely explanation for the designs is that they were part of ancient rituals to beg the gods for rain. 20 minutes of rain a year. Imagine depending on that to survive. For these people, water wasn't a resource. It was the border between existing and disappearing. And a new generation of researchers proposed that the lines weren't made to be looked at, but to be walked. Johann Reinhard and Anthony Aveni suggest the lines served as religious walkways, that they may have been meant to honor the water gods and help crops grow in the dry desert. Notice the nuance, because it's crucial. Aveni stated that his findings clearly showed the straight lines and trapezoids are connected to water, but not to find water, rather in connection with rituals. The trapezoids are big, wide-open spaces where people can walk in and out, Aveni says. The rituals were likely tied to the ancient need to appease or repay a debt to the gods, almost certainly to ask for water. Not maps of the sky, not maps of wells, but stages, sacred paths to process along, to dance and to plead. Lines traced to be walked with the feet like a prayer written into the earth. And there are clues that support this. The platforms found at one end of many of the images would reveal their ceremonial, processional nature, and the presence, on an excavated platform, of fragments of the spiny shell, the spondylus, suggests religious ceremonies connected to water, hardly unlikely in this desert region. The spondylus, a shell that in the Andes was associated with water and fertility, buried alongside these lines, like an offering. But wait, there's a loose thread that makes all of this even more fascinating. Because the Nazca didn't only pray for water from the surface, they also searched for it beneath it. The presence of the puquios, hydraulic systems built near the lines to draw water from underground aquifers, proves the advanced water engineering of the Nazca, a people capable of digging underground aqueducts to wrench water from the driest desert on Earth, and on that same ground, drawing colossal prayers for rain. Engineering and faith working side by side. And here I have to be honest with you, because this channel won't lie to you. None of this is a closed answer. Today, many archaeologists believe the lines were part of rituals connected to water in an arid environment. Lines that might point to underground water sources, sacred paths for ritual processions, offerings found along the lines, and lines that often point toward distant mountains, sources of water. It's the explanation that wins today. But it's still an interpretation. There is no clear answer for now on why and how these lines were drawn. Most likely, we'll never know the whole truth. And perhaps that's where the truly chilling part lies. A vanished people carved their most urgent message into the earth, written with stones, on a scale meant for the sky. We know they were crying out something. Almost certainly, they were begging for water. But the exact voice, the precise ceremony, the name of the gods they spoke to, that was taken by the very desert that preserved their drawings. They left us the words, they kept the language,